If you're trying to fix your marriage by folding more laundry, she's already slipping away. You think being nicer, softer, more agreeable will bring her back. You cook more. You ask, where do you want to go this weekend? You hold back your opinions, trying to keep the peace. But she pulls away faster, and it hurts. Because the truth is brutal. The more you defer, the less she desires. You're not imagining it. Her eyes aren't lighting up the way they used to. Her laugh feels distant. Her body's present, but her energy is gone. This isn't about flowers. It isn't about dinners. It's about what men want deep down. To be seen, to be respected, to be felt as a man. But here's the part no one told you. You didn't fall out of love. You fell out of your frame. And the only way to bring her back is to bring yourself back to the man she used to follow, not because he demanded it, but because his presence pulled her in. Richard had always seen himself as a solid man. At 38, he was decisive, grounded, and full of direction. He ran his own business, took pride in being the man people turned to, and never hesitated when something needed to be done. His presence was strong, not loud. People felt safe around him. His wife Linda used to say, "I breathe better when you walk in the room." And she meant it. Back then, there was a quiet polarity between them. He led, not with force, but with clarity, and she responded. He didn't ask if she wanted to go on a date. He'd simply say, "We're going out Friday. Dress warm." And she loved that. She loved that he knew where he was going, and that he made room for her beside him, not behind, not in charge, just beside. That kind of energy, that frame, wasn't taught. It was felt. It was why she fell for him in the first place. But over the years, something changed. Slowly, quietly. It started with little things. He wanted to be more considerate, more open. After all, that's what a good husband does, right? So instead of choosing dinner spots, he'd ask her opinion every time. "What do you feel like eating tonight?" Instead of planning weekends, he'd wait for her suggestions. He checked in more. He adapted more. He became more agreeable, more accommodating, and less decisive. At first, Linda appreciated the thoughtfulness. She even commented on it. "You've gotten so gentle," she once said. But over time, something began to shift. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She thanked him, but her tone was flatter. Her laughter came slower. It was like a piece of her was pulling back, but not in protest, just in absence. Richard didn't notice it fully. Not right away. He just chalked it up to age, to routine, to life. They were both in their late 50s now. Marriage at this stage, he figured, wasn't supposed to be passionate. It was supposed to be peaceful, steady. But peace began to feel more like silence, and steadiness began to feel more like stillness. And stillness began to feel a lot like distance. He started compensating. He did more around the house. He bought flowers on random Tuesdays. He sent her sweet messages during the day. He told her, "I just want you to feel loved." And she would nod and say thank you, always with that same half smile. She appreciated it, but she didn't respond to it. Then came the evening that changed everything. They were sitting at dinner. Nothing special, just spaghetti and garlic bread. The television was off. No music. Just them and the clinking of forks. He looked at her, really looked, and saw something different. She looked tired, yes, but also gone. Present in body, but not fully there. He put his fork down, trying to lighten the air. "So," he asked, "anything you'd like to do this weekend?" She didn't look up from her plate. She gave a small shrug. "Whatever you want." "Yes, sir." Then she paused, lifted her gaze, and said quietly, "You're such a good man, but something's missing." She said it with no anger, no edge, just a soft, worn honesty. Richard didn't know what to say. He tried to smile. He told her, "We've just been in a rut. It'll pass." She nodded, but didn't respond. The conversation drifted back into silence. That night, lying in bed beside her, he couldn't sleep. Her words echoed in his chest. "You're such a good man. But something's missing." He stared at the ceiling and realized she didn't hate him. She wasn't rejecting him. She wasn't planning to leave. But she wasn't pulled in anymore either. Her eyes, full of warmth and curiosity, now skimmed over him like a comfortable piece of furniture, still there but unnoticed. He still had her love, but he had lost her attraction, and that realization broke something open inside him. He started replaying everything, the moments he deferred, the times he avoided conflict, just to keep the peace, the countless, well-meaning, whatever you prefer, replies. The way he stopped taking the lead knot because he didn't want to, but because he thought deferring was more respectful, more modern, more loving. But all that bending made him disappear. Not physically, emotionally. He spent the next week searching. Not for excuses, but for understanding. Late at night, with his reading glasses on, he typed things into Google he'd never imagined searching 5 years earlier. What men want in long-term marriage. How to restore attraction in your wife. Why being nice doesn't work anymore. How to lead without controlling. And in the middle of a forum thread, he found a sentence that hit him square in the gut. You didn't lose her because you failed. You lost her because you stopped holding your frame. He read that line 3 times. Then again, it made his whole body still, because it named what he couldn't see before. He had become nice. But he had stopped being present. It had love but no polarity, peace but no tension, friendship but no fire. He didn't lose her overnight. It happened slowly, with every time he said, whatever you want. With every time he avoided leading. With every moment he hoped she'd tell him what to do because he was afraid to get it wrong. And now, at 58, he realized he hadn't failed her. He'd simply stopped showing up the way she once trusted him to, not just as a husband, but as a man. Attraction doesn't leave with a slammed door. It disappears in the silence between two people who are still together, but no longer connected. Still married but invisible. Still sleeping beside each other but no longer looking. Richard didn't know what the answer was yet, but he knew what the problem was now. He still had her love, but he'd lost her eyes, and if he wanted to reclaim both, he had to reclaim himself first. Richard didn't need to become someone else. He didn't need to be louder, more aggressive, or perform some fake version of masculinity. What he needed was to return to a posture he once held, naturally a quiet, grounded leadership. That's what created attraction in the first place. That's what pulled Linda toward him years ago. And that's what had slowly faded without him noticing. The truth is, attraction isn't about looks or youth. It's about energy, polarity, presence. Especially in long-term relationships, the man's emotional clarity is what maintains the magnetic pull. And when that clarity vanishes, so does the tension that creates desire. There are 3 simple but powerful principles to reclaim that presence, and with it, rebuild attraction without ever chasing or begging for it. The first is strategic silence. This isn't the silent treatment. This isn't stonewalling. This is the art of restraint. It's the ability to hold your ground emotionally without needing to react, fix, or fill every gap. When Linda made that quiet statement, "You're such a good man, but something's missing," Richard's first instinct was to explain himself. To say, "I've tried everything," or "I just want you to be happy." But something told him to stop, to breathe, to let the silence speak. And that's when she leaned in, just a little, because silence, when used with presence, creates space. And in that space, a woman has room to feel, to reflect, to respond. Most men rush in to fix things. They over-talk, over-apologize, over-reassure. But that energy, while well-intentioned, suffocates attraction. It kills polarity. Because what women want isn't a man who fills every silence with noise. It's a man who can hold stillness with calm confidence. Strategic silence isn't passive. It's powerful. It says, "I'm not rattled. I'm grounded. I don't chase energy, I attract it." The second principle is deciding without permission. Richard had spent years believing that the more he asked for Linda's input, the more connected they'd be. Every dinner, every plan, every weekend was opened with, "What would you like to do?" He thought he was being respectful. What he didn't realize was that he was slowly handing over the reins, not just of the decision, but of the energy in the relationship. Deciding without permission doesn't mean ignoring your partner. It means stepping into your role as the emotional leader of the relationship. It means taking initiative on small things that show direction. When Richard began doing this again, planning Saturday mornings, choosing where to go for lunch, telling her, "We're taking a drive this evening," something shifted. Linda stopped being indifferent. She became curious again, playful, present. Why? Because attraction thrives on certainty. Women are not drawn to indecision. They're drawn to movement, to direction. And when a man reclaims that steady leadership, he doesn't overpower her. He frees her to relax into the connection again. This is how you begin to develop attraction again, not through force, but through quiet certainty. The third principle is emotional reward and withdrawal. This isn't about manipulation, it's about awareness. Every relationship has a dynamic flow of attention and response. When a woman feels emotionally met, seen, and held, she naturally leans in. But when she senses the man has abandoned his frame, she begins to test, not consciously, but emotionally. Richard learned to pay attention. When Linda was warm, curious, connected, he gave that energy right back. He smiled, touched her back as he walked by, held eye contact longer. But when she was cold, critical, or distant, he didn't chase. He didn't plead. He simply became quiet, not punishing, just less available, not emotionally absent, but emotionally self-respecting. At first, Linda didn't know what to make of it, but soon, she noticed. She began leaning back in. She started seeking connection again, not because he asked for it, but because he made space for her to want it. This is how you lead with emotional gravity. You reward warmth with presence, and you withdraw that presence when the connection is being misused. Again, this isn't about playing games. It's about restoring tension, the healthy kind. The kind that creates desire, not conflict. Most marriages over 50 aren't falling apart because of a lack of love. They're fading because the man has stepped out of the very frame that once created the spark. The good news? You don't need to reinvent yourself. You just need to step back into the energy she once responded to. Silence, direction, boundaries, all rooted in calm strength. That's what women want, even if they can't explain it. And that's how attraction is rebuilt, not in words, but in presence. Richard didn't say much in those first few weeks. He didn't overcorrect. He didn't launch into long explanations. He just stood a little taller, chose a little clearer, and let his energy do the talking. And slowly, Linda began to see him again. Not the man who folded laundry, not the man who asked 10 times what she wanted, but the man she could feel, the man who knew where he stood, and made her want to stand beside him again. Something shifted after that night. Richard didn't confront Linda. He didn't sit her down to talk through everything. There was no emotional breakdown, no long, messy heart-to-heart. Instead, he did something quieter, something stronger. He started with one simple decision: to stop asking for permission to be himself. The next Saturday, instead of waiting for her to suggest a plan, he simply walked into the kitchen and said, "Be ready by 9. I'm taking us out." She blinked, surprised. "Where?" He smiled. "You'll see." It wasn't about the destination. It was about the decision, about movement, direction, presence. That day, they drove along the coast, stopped for coffee, Saturday on a bench near the old harbor, talked a little, sat in silence a lot. She didn't say much, but Richard noticed something small. She looked at him more. Not long, lingering stares. Just quick, curious glances as if trying to remember something she used to know. The next weekend, he did it again. Different plan. Same tone. No over-talking, no justifying. And she didn't resist. In fact, she started asking earlier in the week, "So, what are we doing this Saturday?" That was new, and he didn't need to celebrate it. He just took note. He also stopped wearing sweatpants every day, not because she ever complained, but because he looked in the mirror one morning and didn't recognize the man he once was. He put on jeans, a fitted shirt, took 20 minutes to trim his beard and get a real haircut. He didn't tell her he was doing it, he just did it. She noticed. She didn't say it right away, but 2 days later in passing she said, "That haircut looks good on you." Then she walked away, but her voice had a softness it hadn't carried in months. Richard didn't react too much. He just nodded and said, "Thanks," and kept reading the paper. He began spending more time in the garage again, not to hide, but to build. He returned to an old project restoring a classic Mustang he'd let sit for years. It wasn't about impressing her, it was about remembering himself. The part of him that created, moved, led. The part of him that didn't wait to be invited into his own life. The more he returned to that space, the more grounded he became. Not emotionally distant just, emotionally settled, less reactive, more still. And slowly, the dynamic in the house shifted. There were fewer sharp comments, fewer eye rolls, less space between them in bed. One night, While they were doing the dishes together, Linda handed him a towel and said, "You've been different lately, in a good way." Then she added, "I feel more at ease." He didn't reply with a long speech. He just smiled and said, "So do I." It wasn't magic, it wasn't overnight, and it wasn't dramatic, but it was real. And in one quiet moment, about 6 weeks after that dinner table confession, Linda looked across the room at him just for a moment and her eyes lingered. It wasn't lust, it wasn't infatuation, it was something deeper, like recognition, like memory, like rediscovery. And that's when he knew. He hadn't become someone else. He had simply come back to the man he forgot. Let's be clear. This isn't about being dominant. It's not about controlling your wife or demanding anything from her. It's about something deeper, something quieter. It's about being emotionally grounded. Because here's the truth. Most men never hear. Your marriage didn't get cold because the love disappeared. It got cold because the leadership disappeared. The energy, the clarity, the presence that once made her feel pulled toward you, not out of obligation, but attraction. When you stop holding that frame, you don't just lose your edge. You lose the very dynamic that created desire in the first place. And in its place, you get comfort, routine, negotiations. She stops leaning in. She starts managing the relationship. She becomes the one with direction because you stopped offering any. And maybe she doesn't say it directly. Maybe she's still there, still kind. But her energy shifts. She stops asking what you think. She stops reaching out. And eventually, she stops seeing you not as a person, but as a man. You didn't mean to hand that over, but you did. Be honest. Are you starting to feel like Richard? Still married, still present, but something in her eyes has faded. Her energy has shifted. The spark isn't gone, but it's not coming from you anymore. If that sounds like you or someone you care about, then this isn't just a story. It's a mirror, and it's time to face it. You're not alone, but you have to go first. One, whatever you want, at a time. One, I just want to make you happy at a time. One avoided decision, one silenced opinion, one apology too many. That's how it happens. This is not about becoming a different man. It's about returning to the one you once were, before you started deferring, over-accommodating, shrinking. Because what men want, deep down, isn't constant approval. It's to be respected, to be seen, to be felt. Not just for what they do, but for who they are, when they're steady, clear, and rooted in themselves. That's not ego. That's polarity. That's what creates spark even after 30 years of marriage. You don't need to fix everything in your relationship. You need to lead emotionally again. Stand, decide, hold your ground in silence when needed, and speak less, but with more weight when you do. Not to get her attention, but because that's who you are when you remember your center. If you've lost her eyes, you haven't lost everything. But if you don't reclaim your presence, you will. Slowly, quietly, completely. The good news? You don't need her to change. You just need to take back your frame. Because the truth is this, you didn't lose it. You just handed it over. Now it's time to get it back. If you're still here, it means part of you knows something needs to shift. Not next year, not when she changes, but now, with you. So start small. But start. It's not about fixing her. It's about returning to the man she used to feel drawn to. And the first steps are simpler than you think. This week, do just 3 things. First, when the moment feels tense, don't explain, don't justify. Just breathe, and let your silence hold the weight. Second, lead something. Anything. Pick a dinner spot. Plan Saturday, not because it's big, but because it's yours. Third, watch her energy, not just her words. If she leans in, meet her there. If she pulls back, don't chase. Just step back, with calm, quiet strength. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present, because that's how it starts. Not with noise, but with gravity.